What's up, everyone? So there's this video of a gym teacher forcing a girl to go into the pool for gym class, and apparently there's a bunch of hoopla about that. Now, of course, on a philosophical, ethical level, I see that as totally wrong. But what really surprises me is how people don't see that the entire educational process is that students are forced to go to school. If they don't, a police officer will in the same manner, grab that child and force them into school or force them into some form of detention, maybe at a juvenile center, force them to go to court. If that child says no to the mandated activity that the school is requiring, that level of force is used on anything. You know, if they're in class and they were disrupting something, there'd be an assistant who would come and try to force that child into detention. If they continue to resist, there'd be a police officer who would come and use that level of force. That level of force is the norm for schools. It's just the compliance of most students, for which we don't see the physical actions. But I see it all the time. I've seen it in the past, and I've seen it even working with young people in defense work. So everybody say like on these channels like, oh, that's so wrong. He's trying to force a girl to go into the pool. It's like you do realize that that level of force is literally applied to every single student to going to school. And if they didn't, that level of force, being forced into a situation, would be used if that child resisted. Whether it's going to a class, if they resist further, going to a juvenile detention facility where they're put in an orange jumpsuit and held behind bars, or if they were in court and they said no to the judge, they'd be thrown out and for contempt. They'd be put forcibly into some sort of detention camp. Very often that's what's used for juveniles and juvenile justice, having practiced in that area. Yeah, they're going to be forced into very uncomfortable situations against their will. And that's literally what public education is with students. So, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, no, that's so wrong. She said no. It's like, you do realize that male, female, whatever, all students, the second they say no to whatever the government mandates as far as activities that are required for their education, that's the level of force they use to compel them. And maybe they might end up compelling them into the specific activity, but if they don't, they're going to go somewhere else where they're going to be compelled into something else. There's always going to be some level of compulsion and some level of force where some government agent is going to hold them and tackle them or put them into something. And the more they resist or say no, the more that they are going to be forced into that situation. I've watched it firsthand practicing in court and seeing what happens when someone says no to doing something at school. Then they get put into juvie and they say no to the judge. Then they get put into another program and they say no to the program. They get put into a more restricted program. I've seen it. I mean, how can people be this out of touch? Oh, wait, I know, because the government indoctrinates people and they think that their act of complying is voluntary when the government says if you don't go to school or if a parent doesn't send their kid to some form of school, then they're all going to be thrown into a cage. Yeah, that's really voluntary, is when you're threatened with physical violence and being thrown into a jail cell if you don't either go to school or send your kid to school. And yes, even parents could be held in contempt of court. So absolutely insane. Of course, I completely agree that that the gym teacher, his actions are just abhorrent, but is that really anything unique to what is the system? Not in the least bit. In fact, that's rather tame. All right, take care.